move forward. So we're going to get started. It's 12:08 p.m. And it looks like we have a lot of stuff to cover. So we're going to move forward. So this is our officers and our mission. Yeah, we're going to talk about the changes anyway. Our goals. You folks know about the executive committee and that we meet every. Is it the second Tuesday or Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Second Wednesday, sorry. At 3 p.m. So if anybody has agenda items that they want to be discussed, please send that to an executive committee member so we can bring it up and put it on the agenda. We can discuss it. Thank you. Today's agenda. So welcome everybody. This is our typical agenda. We have different things that we want to discuss, but we always do the approval of minutes and approval of the treasurer's report. And then we go on to new business and committee reports and other updates. So we're moving forward. The minutes were sent out. Sorry, I'm asking for corrections for the minutes or changes to the minutes so we can take that before we move for approval. No changes? Okay, so we're calling for a motion. Can somebody motion to approve the minutes of July 19th, 2023?
I'll motion.
Dr. Kelly, was that you? I need a second. Christopher Kish, seconds. All those in favor, you can either raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? If not, minutes are accepted, and we're going to move on to the treasurer's report. Anybody have any questions or if not, I need a motion to approve the treasurer's report and a second.
I'll second.
Who approve? Who made the motion to approve?
Oh, sorry, I looked away. I assumed somebody motioned to approve.
Can we get someone to motion to approve?
A second. I'll motion to approve and someone will second.
Kelly with HMSA, I second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? If not, the treasurer's report has been approved, and we're going to move on to the next item. So, you all know that Monique left Maui and is now living on Oahu, and she needed to vacate her vice chair position. So we were able to appoint Dr. Kelly from Family Life Center as the new vice chair, and Deborah Alamilo has graciously accepted to be the secretary for the remainder of this year. Okay. And Sherry, thank you for taking on the Alliance membership chair. And also what we did, I know we put out for who was going, we put out nomination for volunteers for the lived experience, but we ended up accepting Dr. Kelly because she's already a part of Bridging the Gap, and so she'll be doing a dual role for now. And should there be, in the future, lived experience committee, she will also chair that committee. So just things to be thinking about. Committee reports.
Chris?
I have an update for the emergency housing vouchers. Happy to report that we are up to 67.11% utilization. There are currently 51 units leased, and 63 households are being served by the EHV program out of the total 76 vouchers that were awarded to Maui County. And the other update I have is with regards to the Echo Northwest and the homeless strategic plan. Since the fires occurred, they were supposed to come to Maui, I believe, on the 8th or the 9th, the day that the fires started. They chose to put off their visit because of the problems that we've been facing. And as of right now, that project is on hold, and we do not have a anticipated date to restart that program. We do intend to see it through, but due to all the local upheavals, it is on hold for right now.
Thanks, Chris. With everybody's attention is being so diverted with the disaster stuff too, it makes perfect sense. Okay, agency and other updates. So I met this person, his name is Alan Lloyd, and he is a big part of this tenants association, the Maui Tenants Association, and he wanted everybody to know that there's several bans in place right now, and one of them is that landlords aren't able to evict their tenants after April 8th, after the disaster. So if they got an eviction notice before that, that's different, but anybody after the disaster, they shouldn't be evicted. I think there's just one reason why they could evict their clients, and it's not due to late rent or not being able to pay their rent. I believe it's for immediate family members only that they can evict the tenant. And also there's a ban on raising rents. So landlords aren't able to raise rent right now. And there was one other thing that I forgot what that was right now. Anyway, this is his information. If you have any tenants, any clients whose landlords are giving them a bad time, trying to evict them, trying to raise their rent, please call this number. It's a hotline number. Alan Lloyd works for the Hawaii Workers Center. He's available by phone or email. So just wanted you guys.
Another situation was people who are in the non-congregate shelter who being charged rent still. I think that was the
That's
other.
right. Right. Thank you.
Yeah. And it looks like David, did you have a question?
Oh, sorry, I thought there was an opportunity to give an agency update. If there is, I'd like to give one, but it's brief.
To give us, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, to give a what update?
Yeah, you were doing agency updates, I heard, so I thought I'd give one, but.
No, yeah, so that's just the agenda topic. If agencies have items they'd like to share, we just ask that you submit them 1 week prior to the meeting so that we can make sure it gets on the agenda.
Got it. I can just put it in check too if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, yeah, if you want to give an update next month, let me know. I'll make sure you're on the agenda. But we do try to get our organizations to present monthly, so it's always nice when we have people volunteering to share something.
Thank you.
And then, Lisa, it looks like you have a question.
Hi everyone, Lisa Darcy from Share Your Mana. I'm hoping to just get a little support here and to understand and support Kahale Akiola. I'm working with one person who was needed to be exited because I think they're bringing people in from, I think, the west side. And the person had only a week's notice to leave Kahale Akiola. So I'm trying to reach out to this group to figure out what kind of other supports. I'm able to now get some Red Cross support for this person. And I'm aware of somebody else that they were offered the congregate at Kahale Akiola. But just to maybe get a little more, if we could get a little more support. A week was a pretty tough scramble to try and support this person. And and just maybe how, as somebody who doesn't have a lot of resources, how do we come together and support everybody who may end up being like part of this kind of collateral?
Yeah, Lisa, I think what we'll probably do is talk about that. I thought you had a question related to the tenant association information.
Because it is in a sense because it's if people are have rights, like if they're not being evicted or asked to leave from their wherever they're leasing, is that different from anybody who's at the shelters, or do they have different rules?
Yeah, this is for people who are renting, the tenant association information.
Right. So then, what are the supports for in any of, if it was Mental Health Kukua, Kahale Akiola, Aloha House, any of the agencies, do they have different rules about being asked to leave with very short notice?
With Mental Health Kokua, I can kind of answer that from our perspective here at MHK. We are a program, so they come in understanding and signing up for and agreeing to the rules of the program. So they have certain requirements they have to meet. So before we're a rental, we are a program. So if they're making it unsafe for other people, or if we can kick them out that day if they are a safety risk. So
right. This person this isn't anybody who's a safety risk. They were in complete compliance with the rules. Yeah.
So again, is this person was in shelter? This person was renting a unit. This person, because there's differences for that, and we can talk about resources a little bit later. Right now, we're going to move on to the Tenants Association information. And
all right. Well, if anybody else does, I know someone else who's been asked to leave, but if they do, if we could share resources on where they could go so that they don't become unhoused again, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Lisa. Okay, so there is a briefing today. FEMA is putting on a briefing today. And they also are going to have a virtual briefing. And this starts at 1 o'clock, it was one of the reasons why we wanted to finish early, because we wanted to allow people to be able to attend in person. But there's a lot of confusion about FEMA. There's a lot of myths about FEMA and about, who's eligible, how they can apply, how they can appeal, why they're denied, and just in general how FEMA works. It's a very complicated system, and what the connection is between FEMA and the Small Business Association. So again, there is a meeting today at 1 o'clock at MEO for those folks who want to be there in person and ask questions. And there is a virtual meeting September 26th from 9 to 11. send this out?
No, so we can send the link out for the online meeting so that people have access to click it. I know you probably can't click it through the screen
Right.
here. So yeah, we'll definitely send that link out.
And there's so much information. I mean, we had a personal one-on-one with Michael Kern, and there's just so much information. It's hard to take it in one sitting. So, after the week after we finished, I still had questions about same things that we covered because there's just a lot of information. And we want to provide good information to people who are in need. So yeah, please feel free to leave if you're planning to go to the MHACOC session. Thank you.
All right, so our next presentation, I wanted to introduce Mahalani Zamora. So as a local chapter to our COC, we have opportunity to request assistance in a disaster when we need some additional help operating for the relief efforts that the COC would like to support. And so we had reached out and we acquired some technical assistance, and so Melanie is part of that team. And so she's coming today to share a little about the COC's role in disaster response and some of the systems that we can stand up to put in place to help those that were impacted. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Melanie.
Thank you. Will you move my slides?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be here on Maui with Dr. Kelly and Maud and all the amazing providers that we've met so far. My team right now consists of 3 people, 2 of whom are covering another meeting here in Maui. So I wanted to talk a bit about what we do and what the importance of a Continuum of Care's role is in disaster response. It feels a little strange for me to come at it from this angle because you are in the response and you are all doing things every moment of every day to help your community recover. So my team is connected to the Housing and Urban Development HUD's Special Needs Assistance Programs Office, which we refer to as SNAPS. That's the office that pays for much of the homeless services across the country, including in Maui and in Hawaii. So when there is a natural disaster, my team and me being part of that team, we are deployed to wrap ourselves around the continuum of care and serve in whatever way that continuum of care needs us to protect the limited, finite resources of that continuum of care and also help the continuum of care know how to engage with the bigger disaster response and recovery machine that kind of descends on a community when there's a big disaster. So you all are experiencing all of that, like I said, every minute of every day. But we came, this is our 3rd full day in Maui. We did not want to come at the wrong time because disaster response and recovery should be led and guided by the local community. But at the time that we came, we came on Sunday, it was when we knew that non-congregate shelters were going to start going through some transitions in the next couple weeks. We could see that there was some questions happening between all of the different agencies that are involved in disaster response, and we thought we could help, like I said, connect ourselves to the continuum of care so you could continue doing the amazing work that you do all the time. So that's what my team does and why I'm here. So I'm gonna go kind of quickly through these slides because there's there is content in the slides that you're experiencing all the time. So you can move to the next one. So why would a COC be a key partner? Essentially, it's because you know how to connect to the people who have been displaced, whether they were homeless before the fire or if they become homeless throughout the course of the recovery process. We want to avoid that wherever we possibly can. We don't want people who are living in any kind of situation to become literally homeless. We don't want to add to the homeless population, so we're doing whatever we can to not let that happen. And also in disasters, there can be some potentials to make it so people who were homeless before the fire, they can have a better situation after, throughout the course of recovery, because we're paying a lot of attention to all the people who were displaced, no matter where they were. We're paying attention to them. So is there a new way to connect to people who were literally homeless before the disaster? And I know in Maui, you all are going through a lot of decision making about where people are going to go, what the criteria are for who's going to go where. So we're doing what we can to help guide those conversations. Next slide. So key messages, if I was in a COC, the key messages that I would be saying to partners, and you have to pick what the right time is to say these things, but you all as homeless service providers and the homeless system, you know where people were before the disaster. You know how to engage them, and you know them. You were working with many people who are now probably staying in NCS, non-congregate shelter. You know how to engage with them. You know what their particular needs are. You know their family compositions, resources that you might have already been trying to match them with. You know that. You don't have to relearn all of these things. You don't have to have people tell you their story again and again because you already know it. So it's a really important resource in disaster response, that people who already have that information and your locals, these are your friends and neighbors and families. You don't have to go through that relearning, which can be traumatizing for a survivor, for them to have to tell their story over and over. I'm sure you know this by now, that a lot of people who were displaced are not qualifying for certain types of assistance that other people maybe are qualifying for. So throughout the course of the disaster response and recovery, you're going to know who is not going to be eligible for things, and your programs and agencies are going to be able to pick people back up. So if you were doing outreach with somebody, now they're in an NCS shelter, and then they come back out, you know what the resources that you have that you can kind of reactivate for that person. And a lot of people will fall into literal homelessness. We're going to do everything we can to avoid that, but people who might not have been homeless before, they will fall into literal homelessness. So once the disaster shelters close, you'll have some people that are new to your system, and again, you just know how to work with them. So you can be sensitive and trauma informed and get to know people, and then start helping them on their path toward longer term recovery. Next slide. Okay, that's just a quick one. So when we talk about sheltering and rehousing, this is kind of the arc of a disaster is what we refer to it when we're talking amongst our own team. So I'll go through it quickly. The event happened. The fires happened in August. In the second column, the population, so in Hawaii, we've seen the population who have come into shelters, it went really high at the very beginning. So a lot of people were being intaked into non-congregate shelter. And then that number kind of went down a little bit, and then it came back up. And that's usually because people will find a temporary place to stay that's not being tracked by Red Cross or FEMA or the state. they'll find a place to stay, but then that place kind of stops working for them or for whoever they're staying with, and then they have to come back into shelter. So we've seen that population in NCS for the Maui fires, we've seen that fluctuate. Phase 3 is where that population kind of plateaus. So we know new people are not coming into shelters now because that period of registering and being intaked into non-congregate shelter has ended. So the population is for sure plateaued. Where we come in and where the continuum of care can kind of think of where your superpowers can apply in the most effective way is between phases 3 and 4. So the mission of the Red Cross is to protect and provide basic needs to people, and they don't stay on site forever. That's not their mission. They do a lot of amazing long-term recovery. Your state is doing a lot of amazing planning for long-term recovery. There are all these things in the works. At the same time, the shelters are going to start closing and people will be leaving. Not a lot of, I don't know anything more than what you have already heard. So I'm not saying that, I'm not making any announcements. Please don't misconstrue anything I'm saying. But there will be phasing out of people out of the shelters. So the more the continuum of care can have information about who is where, what people that you were connected to before are being sheltered in what hotel, that's really important information to have. And we've been working with BTG, and they've been working diligently with Red Cross to figure out some data sharing agreements on behalf of the continuum of care that can give us information. I also know that a lot of agencies have been giving lists to Red Cross, and then Red Cross kind of can cross-check their data and tell particular agencies where your people are. We need to smooth all of that out, and that's something that my team and I are working on and getting that information so everyone knows that once shelters start phasing out, you'll know how to connect to the population you were serving before. So this is an important thing, and it's been a primary feature of Maui. In disasters, it used to be that that FEMA and Red Cross and other partners would open big gyms or community centers, and there would be big congregate shelters stood up. In recent months, so this has been a switch really since COVID, and then throughout this year, when there's a big disaster, people are being sheltered in non-congregate shelter. It adds a different kind of complexity for programs and agencies and advocates to be able to connect to where your people are. So this is a new thing. It's a new thing for us in how we can work in a disaster recovery setting, and we're learning a lot more about it. And you all are, I don't even need to say more about it because you all are very familiar with the NCS idea. Next. So this is the most important thing that I want to talk to you all about. We understand that there will be a multi-agency shelter transition team set up. It's called the MAST. You may not have heard about this before, but it is something that we believe is going to be a practice or a process over the next weeks. And it is not a bad thing. I want to say that. It's not a bad thing. How we can think of a MAST, and it will likely be set up at the state level, and then people will be invited to participate in the MAST. The Continuum of Care will be invited, and different agencies that have different resources or ways to connect with people will be invited to participate in the MAST. How we in homeless services can think of the MAST is it's like a coordinated entry when we do a case conferencing. So I know Maui does coordinated coordinated entry a little bit differently than other places. Every place does it a little bit differently. It's not just Maui. But the idea of case conferencing is how we can anchor our minds into this process. So to illustrate, I always think of like a round table where FEMA, Red Cross, the state, maybe Small Business Administration, maybe a TANF agency, anybody who has resources that are going to come into play that could connect to a person or a household who has been displaced by a disaster, they sit around this round table. And the survivor sits at that round table. That survivor tells their story and has the information, and then all of those other agencies can pull what the information that they need from that survivor and connect the resources that they can tie to that survivor really on the spot. It doesn't happen perfectly on the spot, but they can really do resource connection at one time. The survivor doesn't have to go to the FEMA table and tell their story, go to the Red Cross table and tell their story, go to the HUD table and tell their story. They can say at one time. It's also a really important function because data sharing between agencies can get really hairy. These are big agencies, and they don't want to share, PII, personal identifying information between agencies. Sometimes it's prohibited by law. Sometimes it's their own agency rules. So that information sharing can be really complicated and sometimes not happen. The MAST is a way that everyone's hearing that story. They're gathering the personal information that they need, and they don't have to try to get it from somebody else. So I think I can leave it at that, but we'll be working on this idea of the MAST over the next long time. And if any of you're part of the Maui Homeless Alliance, if any of you have questions or are confused about different things, you are welcome to reach out to me, and I can put my email and my cell number in the chat. You're welcome to reach out to me. We might not be physically on Maui for a really long time, but we will be working remotely, especially with BTG, and especially watching what's happening with people as they're leaving shelters. We'll be working on all of that for a long time. So please reach out if you have questions or anything that you think we could be helpful with.
It looks like Thelma has a question.
Okay.
Yeah, just a few clarifying things. So there's a lot of new funding that's coming out, a lot of funds from FEMA that's coming out, long-term case management. I want to know what the difference is between this and the long-term, the disaster case management and the unmet needs table, because it sounds very similar to that. That's a national VOAD model that we've used on the neighbor islands.
So those things will be reconciled. The VOAD is a part. They will be a part of the MAST too, and it's why it's important for the MAST to be kind of organized and then really organized at a state level, because there are so many different agencies at play. The state knows all of the agencies and mechanisms that are working on this, so they can kind of organize and coordinate everyone. So I don't know exactly how that will be reconciled between the disaster case management and long-term recovery in this setting. I've seen it happen in different places, that coordination, but it's something that will be coordinated. So I would say just pay attention to those things if they're really central to what work you're doing. And I may know more in the next few days. I may know more next week about the organization of the MAST, and I can make sure you get that information, Thelma.
Okay, thank you. And I have another I wanted to say something else as well, because we live in a state. This is Maui County, but sometimes, and even with our Hawaii State Board group, we feel like people are just coming in and not taking the county into consideration. And this is Maui County. We have a really strong Lahaina community, and they want to have a voice in everything. So, we need to keep Maui County in mind. And I think a lot of times, our state may overrun and take over without checking in with the county first. So that creates problems, and that creates communication issues. The other thing I wanted to ask is, this sounds like it's for everybody who's a survivor, not just people who have been unsheltered.
Yeah. So how I've seen this happen, so the thing between the county and the state, I know there are so many conversations, and I do believe that people's hearts are in good places right now, and there's so much chaos. So you're working 23 and a half hours a day. Everyone is working so hard, and we'll do our best to help smooth relationships and all of that. But but yes, disasters have to be locally led and guided. The recovery has to be locally led and guided. We feel very strongly about that. So as far as what HUD SNAPs will do, we will always start with that first, and center ourselves around that all the time.
Another thing, if I could just add, from personal experience that we have had so far with our HUD TA, when we first reached out, the conversation was very different than any other response that we've had. The approach was very different. It was, we'll only come if you feel like it would be helpful, if it would help the local community. And it seemed like there was some cultural sensitivity there that we have not necessarily seen on some of the other responses. Not speaking, and I'm not going to speak from any personal experience and call out any organizations. I'm speaking in general, the feedback that I hear from the community and the voices you're talking about, Thelma and Lahaina, that they want to be heard. It has felt like people coming in and taking over our town. When we talked to the HUD TA team, they were very sensitive to that and saying, we're only going to come if it's going to be helpful and it will help the local community. And the whole foundation and premise of that, and that they have shared and we have seen it to be evident, is it is best that the local community organizations are involved in this response. So I just wanted to put, just because I've had a little bit more opportunity to have further discussions with our HUD TAs, I just wanted to share that with you guys too, because it has been very evident, and that approach seems like it's exactly what our community would want. It wasn't forceful or we're coming in and we're going to tell you how to do it. And it was a little bit refreshing, if I can be completely candid with you all.
So I'm not complaining about anybody. I'm just verbalizing what I've seen, because I've been very active in the disaster work. And I want to be respectful of everybody, and I want that same respect back. The people who have been coming in from the mainland, the federal team, Red Cross, they're all working hard. You're right. Everybody's heart is in the right place. We just want the communication to be smoother so we can move forward and help these people get what they need. And that's what it's all about, right? We don't want to walk over or step on each other while doing it. So That's all I was trying to say.
I really appreciate that. How I think about it is, the community needs the right tool at the right time. And in many disaster response efforts, all the tools come and they all are trying to give you the tool. They're trying to hand you the tool. And you're like, wait, we don't need this tool yet. So I think if we, as this giant disaster response machine, can do a better job of understanding when the tool is being asked for and who can bring that correct tool at the right time, I think it's a lot more helpful. But I wanted to say this last thing, Thelma. When the mast is stood up, they say, we're standing up the mast. Sir, these are the words we say. We're standing up the mast. They usually how it will be organized is the mast will start focusing on the people who will likely leave NCS first. So they'll probably start with people who have declared to be, or who have been determined to be literally homeless before the fire, and then they'll work their way through the different populations.
So there's a question in the chat. Can you identify yourself? Because your name is a bunch of letters and numbers. I don't know who is asking the question. I'm happy to read it out loud. I'm just curious who it is.
Oh, it's Carol.
Carol, okay. So the question is about the mass process. It sounds like an individual or family would be brought before a whole panel of agency representatives to tell their story and have a decision made. I'm wondering how the process will be designed to prevent it from being intimidating to traumatized individuals.
Yeah, so the idea of the round table that I gave, that's more of like a metaphor. It doesn't have to, it's just a way that I can think about the process. If the person doesn't want to come to a table, then there are other ways that the agencies can get information from the person. And also, in this situation, people have already given their information. The timing is always a consideration, and the timing of a mask is never perfect. We always wish it would have been earlier, wish it would have started later. So there is a huge component of being trauma-informed when you're standing up a mast. If a person does not want to come and tell the story, or if there's trauma, if they don't want to do that, they are not required to do that. So that's more of a metaphor. There are other ways that the mast team can connect to a provider and gather what their needs are.
It looks like James Koshiba has a question.
Hi, James.
Hi, Melanie. Good to meet you. Just a couple of questions. One is, early on in the presentation, you mentioned having to smooth out the process for providers to work with Red Cross to find people in non-congregate shelter to compare lists. And I thought in the first couple of weeks after the disaster, I had worked that out. So I wanted to ask the providers, is anyone still having trouble providing names to Red Cross and finding people in non-congregate shelter?
I think there's a few other issues that we've had, or concern. I don't want to say issues, that's a hard word, but there's a few other concerns. I know that some of the organizations have had. I know that the data sharing agreement just got approved at the BTG level like yesterday. And so I think there is some benefit to having that assistance. And we've already seen some progress made in some of the discussions that have been taking place so far. But I don't want to be the only one speaking on behalf of the organizations. If anyone else wants to share, I just wanted to jump in and share my personal thoughts of what I've seen so far.
So Dr. Kelly, am I understanding your comment correctly that the hang up was now on kind of either the individual organization or BTG side for being able to share data information with ARC?
There was a data sharing agreement that the Red Cross actually needed before they could even share names with us. And so that data sharing agreement just got signed yesterday. Or it might have been the day before. I'm sorry, everything's kind of a blur. But it was just recently signed. I'm pretty sure it was yesterday. And so they actually weren't able to share names with us. I know our organization, we've been going and doing outreach in the hotels. We know where all of our clients are. And that was not with Red Cross assistance. That was just our regular outreach efforts. But again, like other organizations may have other experiences. They may have worked with the Red Cross in a different way. But I know that we haven't been able to really get information from Red Cross without that data sharing agreement that just got approved by BTG yesterday.
I know that they couldn't share whole lists of people. My understanding was that any organization that was looking for clients in non-congregate shelter could share those names, and Red Cross would connect you, confirm that they were in NCS, and connect you with them.
Yeah.
That was the process that I thought we'd set up.
Yeah, and James, I don't think that was a bad system. I don't, and I think I think providers have been able to find their people in the non-congregate shelters. I think what is more helpful especially after a large scale disaster like this one, is if the local continuum of care can get broader data, can get fuller lists of data so they can plan. So they can kind of see, okay, this person is in our HMIS system. They can do a whole cross-checking of everyone who was in the HMIS system. Where are they now? Hey, let's go find them. Let's go outreach them, because now we know where they are. And or people who were precariously housed, if we can see how they're being categorized, then the continuum of care can understand that and plan for it. It helps the local groups plan for what is going to come their way. So I don't think the method of an agency sending Red Cross their list was bad in the moment, but the broader data it's really essential for planning.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that clarity. The mechanism that I set up was really in response to providers reaching out to me and saying, we can't find people in non-congregate shelter.
Yeah.
Once they moved from congregate to congregate shelter, providers were concerned. They said, we have people that need mental health services, we have people that need medical support in some cases. And so that's what that initial mechanism was set up for. But I totally understand the need for broader data sharing. So thank you.
I don't think there's a conflict. I think there's been a sequence.
Yeah,
so
no, I wasn't trying to suggest there's a conflict. I just wanted to be sure I understood what the needs are, so that if I can help advocate, I can do so. Thank you. My second question is, this is the first time I've heard of MAST. And so I just texted, as you were talking to, I just texted Luke Myers, who is coordinating the Joint Housing Task Force.
Yes.
And I guess my question is, this is not going to be stood up in time for the end of Safe Harbor, is it? When all the pre-disaster people who are experiencing homelessness pre-disaster are discharged from hotels on the 29th.
Yes, so I don't know exactly when it's going to be stood up. I hope soon, but it's not. So HUD is a partner on a MAST usually in a large-scale disaster like this one, but we're not leading the MAST. So that is coming. It is being led by the state somewhere in your orbit, James. And I just think it's such a new idea that I don't think it's been rolled out yet or introduced. And that's why, like in this presentation, I want people to know what it is when they hear. And I even, I hesitated a little bit before presenting and thought, should I even talk about the masks? It's not an idea that people have heard yet, but I'm pretty certain that it's coming. If it starts on the 28th, my hope would be that it would follow people into wherever the first group of people who leave safe, after Safe Harbor ends, it would follow and still continue to work with that group of people to understand their needs. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if that's going to happen. So I can't speculate. I can be hopeful.
Okay, but in your experience, it's the state that leads the creation, the convening of the MAST?
Yeah. And I think that is what is happening here. I just don't think it's been rolled out yet. And yes, like standing up the mast means it's starting. I don't know why we say standing up the mast. I think it's maybe a military to stand up something, but I'm not military. It is not part of recovery-based recovery planning systems that I'm not familiar, or person-centered recovery. I don't know that method or theory. I don't know.
All right, it looks like we're out of time. So if you have any questions, are we okay skipping this last slide, Melanie?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. If you have any questions, Melanie put her email and phone number in the chat. You can feel free to reach out to her directly. You could also email Thelma, myself, or Debbie. And David, it did look like you had an exciting announcement to share for your organization. So perhaps we can put you on deck to present next month. It looks like you have a new youth center open. So maybe you could reach out to me and we can firm that up. Other than that, our next committee meeting is on Wednesday, October 18th. The executive meeting is on the 11th. So please, if you have agenda items you'd like to add, please make sure it gets to us by the 11th. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Don't forget to take care of yourself. I know we're all working very long hours, so take care.
Thank you. See you folks next time.